Hey guys, this is Roxum087. I just want to make a short video for the guys out there who do their own teching for your Tokyo Marui M870s, who really like their gas shotguns, their Tokyo Marui gas shotguns. I'm just going to make a quick video about the Tokyo Marui KSG to tell you guys all the key information that you guys are probably interested in. It's because when the KSG first came out, I really wanted to know what improvements did they do to the internals, and is there anything to look out for, what the external quality is like and all that stuff. This is not an overview, this is not an in-depth review, this is just a video to quickly show you guys some information. So first off, let's talk about the external build. When you first take the Marui KSG out of the box, believe it or not, the plastic is actually quite decent. Normally Tokyo Marui, all their plastic is pretty shitty. I never once found Tokyo Marui plastic to be good, to tell the truth. But in this case, I think it's because the sheer size of the handguard and the lower frame, the rigidity is actually pretty good this time. It does sound sort of hollow, sometimes it feels sort of tacky, but it's actually stiff and rigid. So I'm quite happy about that, to tell the truth. This also applies to the lower frame. The only weakness, or the weak areas that I see, is the area for the ejection port. And you can actually bend the plastic a little bit. But otherwise, believe it or not, it's actually quite solid. So I'm very glad to report that the plastic is actually pretty good. And as for the plastic Picatinny rail, I'm very well aware that some of you guys are afraid of using foregrips. It's because if you use foregrips on a real KSG, you can actually break the shotgun because it uses plastic Picatinny rails. It's too early to tell whether or not the Marui KSG will hold up, but in my case, because I want to play it safe, I decided to use a Magpul XTM hand stop kit. It's because this is much less aggressive on the Picatinny rail. The rail's in spec and everything. I'm just a little bit worried about the durability. So that's the reason why I'm going to use a hand stop kit instead of a foregrip. I'm pretty sure most of you guys who actually want to use this are a little bit afraid as well. I'm extra afraid just because I actually intend to use this a lot. For the next couple of games, I actually intend on using this for quite a long time. So I really hope it holds up. I know some of you guys, historically, all the plastic Picatinny rails don't tend to break, but because this is a shotgun, because you have to, shuck it every single time, it does bring a little bit of concern, right? Bring up a little bit of a concern when it comes to using it. So just be wary of that. And the next thing I want to talk about is the actual overall security of the rail. So believe it or not, there's only two screws holding this Picatinny rail onto the gun. It holds on to this mounting bracket in the middle, which is very secure, and to the sling point. So far, there is no bending whatsoever on the rail. The rail is particularly solid. You can see the screw. One of those screws is right here, the other one is right under the front post iron sight. It's very secure. Everyone was a little bit scared of that. It appears to be very secure, so don't worry about it. I don't have to worry about it. I'm not going to worry about it either. And as for the internals, so this is the most important part. This is the part that I wanted to know very badly, was how did they modify the internals to accommodate the bulb-up gas shotgun system? So it turns out it's actually much more simpler than we expected. So because the trigger is right here, the nozzle's right here, and the cylinder output valve is right here, right? So everyone was a little bit afraid as to where they would put the striker. The striker is the part that opens the output valve on the cylinder. Sometimes people like to call it the hammer. It's basically the thing that strikes the output valve, opens the valve, and fires the gun. So in this case, what they did, let me peel out the back panel, which is very difficult to take out, by the way. In this case, all they did was miniaturize the striker. So it's not a special it's not like a super awkward design. It's still essentially the same design as the gas-powered shotgun. The only difference is that they miniaturized it. You guys can't see that, can you? Let me get a flashlight. I'm just going to use my... Can you see that there is a part on this side over here. That's the striker for the output valve. So it's sort of like an L-shaped, which is a little bit, I know it's a little bit concerned for some people because having a small striker will affect the FPS and so on and so forth. I actually honestly don't know, is because my only experience with gas shotguns is with the Tokyo Marine M870, and that's the only system that I've ever saw with a striker that big. But since they made the striker smaller, I'm not 100% sure if that definitely means that the power will be affected. I'm not 100% sure yet, but I am somewhat wary about that. I'll have to look into it when I make my in-depth review. By the way, I will be playing around with the internals. Is because since I intend on using the KSG for a while, I will have to make some parts to accommodate some basic proms. If you guys like to play around with the gas shotguns, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, and just to show you guys, by the way, and also the sear is right over here. So the sear that holds onto the striker, you can actually see it from inside here. And it's not, because this is a bullpup, everyone was afraid that the sear will be very weird, it will take off like this. It uses a rotary spring. So basically the sear still takes off the traditional way that we expect. So don't worry about that. Everyone was very worried that if you have to handle parts like this, normally what that means is that when it comes to bullpup gas guns of any kind, sometimes they rely on sears that take off like this. A good example, now although this gun is not a bullpup, an MP7 is sort of like that. The sears sort of take off like this. When sears take off like this, and you rely on a bullpup trigger, you have to remember that you have to pull the bullpup trigger to a very specific point so that it will take off and let go of the striker or the hammer, for the which is a very big problem, because basically what happens if you don't reach it, your gun won't fire. So it doesn't use a sear like that. So don't worry about that. That's actually some very good news that a lot of you guys will be very happy about. If you guys do your own teching for all this stuff, I'm pretty sure most of you guys are fairly happy about that. And the trigger bar, by the way, is not made of plastic. Someone online said that the trigger bar is plastic. It is not plastic. It's just very shitty cast metal. And yes, I am concerned about that too, because it's a bullpup, and it's a very long trigger bar. Just to show you guys the instruction booklet, that's how long it is. Look at how long that thing is. So yes, I'm very worried about that. But for now, I'm just going to see how long this thing lasts. I'll probably blow through quite a lot of rounds very quickly. Let me see, what else do I have to talk about? Oh, and I also have an extra very good news for you guys who do your own teching. You see this area here? And this thing here? This is normally on the real steel KSG, that's where your shells go in, right? In this case, this is the chassis. Yes, the chassis for the internals is now made of metal. Unlike the Tokyo Marine M870s, the breacher, the wood version, or the tactical version, it uses a plastic chassis. Now it has a metal chassis. So everyone is going to be pretty happy about this, albeit you have to take apart quite a lot of screws to get to it, albeit that it's now made of metal. So you don't have to worry about stripping the threads. Even if you do strip them, you can just basically buy a step up the screw and redo the threads. So it's much more simpler to handle with a metal chassis. So a lot of you guys, I'm pretty sure all you guys who deal with all these stuff yourself, you guys will be very happy that most of the stuff that they made internally, they actually put a little bit of thought into it. The bullpup is still a little bit annoying to deal with, but all the key components, where all the chassis stuff is all contained, they appear to be doing the right thing. They're not doing all the weird crap so far. Nothing that I realized so far that it's been horrible. Oh, you know what? There's actually one concern that I can't answer you guys. A lot of people ask me why the inner barrels don't have a bracket. If you don't know what I'm talking about, on the Marine M870s, there's a little bracket in there that holds the three inner barrels together like this. On the KSG, it doesn't use that anymore. I think that if you look inside here, I think it's now using an O-ring to hold all those three barrels together. So that's a little bit better. I'm not entirely sure if there's anything in between the barrels. So you're not supposed to have all three barrels touching like this. They're supposed to be spaced out a little bit, right? I don't see that spacing, but what I can see is that I can see the O-ring wrapped around all three barrels. I've been trying to look into this for a while now. I don't see any of the spacers or anything like that. It appears to be just holding it together all like this. I might be wrong, but I really need to take this out to see. I haven't taken this apart just because I'm having a lot of trouble just getting the chassis out, because I don't know to what extent do I have to take this out. If you look at the instruction manual, there's an awful lot of screws. So there's a lot of things to manage if I have to take this apart. I hope it's simple, but I'm holding back for now because I want to be absolutely sure that I can put it back together. And honestly, looking at the instruction booklet, it actually sort of scares me a little bit, because there is quite a lot of stuff to keep track of, to tell the truth. Honestly, not quite sure what to think, to tell the truth. But so far, that's basically all the key stuff. All the key stuff that you guys want to focus on, I'm pretty sure I mentioned all of it. Basically, don't worry. Right? So basically, internally, I don't think you have to worry all that much. The only thing you have to worry about is this thing, obviously, is because the stupid gas seal. Like, I don't know why Tokyo Marine loves to do this. Like, when you make a gas seal, don't make it look like a goddamn puzzle. Like, why not just make it perfectly square? Why not make this square? Like, it's not like they don't have the space for it, just make it square. But they don't. Obviously, they want to piss you off and make it look like a deformed house. Now, I don't know what they were thinking. So that's pretty much the only part from concern. Oh, by the way, for you guys who are about to say, like, just wrap Teflon tape about it, if you wrap Teflon tape around this, it's very difficult to put back in. That was the case for the Tokyo Marine M870 gas tank, except for the breacher. The breacher was a little bit easier to put back. But for the original big gas tank, it was very difficult to deal with. I haven't tried putting Teflon tape on it because, I just got this. This is not leaking yet. But since I'm going to be using green gas, this would probably leak within the next 2 weeks, because I have a lot of games lined up for this thing, and I only have one tank. So this should be a fairly good test when I make my in-depth review. I hope this thing lasts okay. I just hope, because I won't be bringing a backup gun. Anyways, that's pretty much it for the video for now. I think those are all the key important points that I want to talk about. Nothing else really to note, really. The externals, I'll talk more in depth in my in-depth video, just because there's some parts of the externals that are actually pretty nice, but those are just details. The main important stuff is the internals. Very happy about the internals so far, with the exception of the amount of screws, which you sort of have to accept whenever you deal with Tokyo Marine gas shotguns. You just sort of have to accept the fact that it's slightly more annoying to take apart. I don't want to say the system is complicated, but I don't think it could be any simpler than this. Anyways, that's it for the video for now. I'll catch you guys next time in maybe about 2 to 3 weeks, after I'm done blowing a couple hundred rounds through it, or maybe 1,000 rounds if I can reach it that far, and then I'll come back with a review. So peace guys, happy shooting, thanks for watching.